Alright people, no idea if there's any interest in this kind of video now, to be honest. These days I'm happy to get even like 10,000 views on a BF5 video. Let's do this. We have the final guns for BF5, as most of you no doubt know by now. So today we're ranking the final primary weapons that got added from worst to best. And yes, before anyone mentions it in the comments, Teabag famously uses worst to best as the premise for some of his videos. He's not the first and obviously isn't the last to do so, but shout out to him regardless. He's a good dude. So yeah, this isn't stat based today or placing weapons within the meta as such. That's for a different video I'll likely bring to you soon if this one does okay. Instead, this is just my personal opinion, and I'd love to see you leave your rankings of the 6 new primary weapons below. And my final intro point, the support of late has been epic, trying to hit our current 50k sub goal while covering Battlefield at a tough time. If you're new here and haven't subbed before, just even considering it would be super appreciated, as we currently sit at 45,000. And so let's get to my personal worst gun of the new ones, the shotgun. A shotgun for the support class. Forgive me for not having proper in-game footage of this one, but I didn't do a video reviewing it as I'm not a huge shotgun fan, and it was a bit late to really capture the interest of anyone, to be honest, and my footage got corrupted, which was great, so I'll keep this one really short. I can't support putting a shotgun any higher than this without it doing something super special in BF5, which the shotgun doesn't. There's nothing exactly wrong with it, but I prefer other shotguns over it, and in this build of the game, with lots of weapons having a lot of their bullet damage lethality back, still being super easy to use, and combined with massive maps, shotguns are just lacking the regular opportunity to shine at what they're good at. So for me, this was the worst weapon added in the final content update, and I'll give it a 2 out of 10, purely and only because I have no desire to use it, rather than it actually being bad. It's just fine, nothing more, nothing less. Okay, next up we have the K3143, and I actually did review this gun and all the ones to follow, so I have gameplay footage to use. This is the final bolt action rifle for the recon class, and I wanted to love this gun so much, but I just couldn't. It's a really cool idea, a hybrid sight rifle, allowing you to switch between iron sights and a scope on the fly, the premise being that you can run and gun with it up close if you want with the iron sights, and switch to the scope anytime you come across someone at range. Plus you can use the default 3x scope or select these 6x via a specialization, so then why don't I like it? Well, it has some major drawbacks for me. First off, the iron sights aren't conducive to me playing well. They're just too thick and clunky for my personal tastes, and the scope is arguably just as bad, if not worse, with the default chevron being way too thick, and even the more conventional kind of cross of something like the Predator scope still being way too thick, obscuring my view of what I'm aiming at, something I've heard mentioned by snipers of all ability levels so far. Plus there's the issue of it seemingly not landing shots reliably, either due to a bug or as a feature, as the scope isn't lined up correctly due to it being mounted on the side or something. And of course there's Danny on PC's coverage of the gun actually just simply not landing damage at all sometimes, even when you do hit the target. Either way, it's a game, and I don't want to sit there not trusting whether I'm hitting the target or not when I'm aiming at it. On top of this, I'm not much of a sniper anymore, compounded by the reality of bolt actions being statistically outclassed in BF5 due to pretty much relying upon hitting headshots, and playing on console makes that even more challenging, as I do. So yep, I'll give the K3143 a 4 out of 10. It just has too much working against it in my opinion. Okay, next up we have the Johnson, a semi-auto rifle for the assault class. The Jono falls just inside my bottom 3 here, essentially the lower end of our middle ground. And it does so because it's simply mediocre for me. It can work, it can kill people, it's easy to use due to very low recoil, but it just serves no purpose for me selecting it. The reason being because it has a slow times kill compared to a lot of alternative options at different ranges, just for that lack of recoil. Recoil which honestly isn't all that different to something like the Carabin, which kills faster at every single range. But I don't want to just regurgitate my review again. Essentially the Jono is the opposite of a skill cannon. It's very simplistic to use and easy to wield, and so you therefore receive less potency. If you have the ability to control recoil to any kind of degree, then the Jono isn't an optimal selection, as also one of its main strengths, muzzle velocity, can also be beaten elsewhere, while some guns aren't far off matching it whilst being more potent. But I said this wouldn't all be about stats, so yeah, to me, I describe the Jono as kind of a starter rifle. Are you just starting to try to get to grips with the gunplay? Well, this gun kind of feels like what I'd imagine would be the default starter weapon for a lot of games. To me, it also sort of feels like a weapon without any specializations attached, even when it does have. It's just kind of clunky, but some people enjoy it and that's cool. It's just not my cup of tea, and in addition, it's just not up to much from an actual performance standpoint according to how it's coded. I'll give it a 5 out of 10, and it wouldn't bother me if I never used it again. It's not awful, it's not great, it's just kind of meh. Okay, onwards, and just about managing to climb into my top 3 is the Shusha, or however you say it. I'm gonna go with calling it the Shellshat because I'm just used to doing so, even if it's completely wrong, so please don't hold it against me, it's just a habit. So I was a big fan of the Shellshat in BF1, so I was very excited about its return in BF5, and honestly, I ended up a bit disappointed. Yes, even despite those claims from some of it absolutely melting them in 2 headshots, you see the Shellshat isn't all that easy to utilize in an optimal manner. To me, it feels like it has the quirks and mechanical requirements of a Battlefield 1 weapon, which is fine in isolation. As some of you know, I'm part of that rare breed that enjoys BF1 gunplay. However, when you incorporate that into a game like BF5, where almost every other gun feels like a laser beam and kills super quickly, regardless of how you use it, it causes the Shellshat to feel like it requires more effort without enough of a payoff. That's not to say it can't be lethal, it truly can, but it just feels like it doesn't fit in with everything else. Why work harder for a result, when you can just use something else and produce similar outcomes? That said, I've had plenty of fun with it. Blasting a head off super quick here and there is fantastic. The Shellshat is always satisfying to pick up kills with. It's also got that pleasing aesthetic that really stands out from all the other guns. It sounds good, and incorporating the semi-auto fire mode in with full auto when viable can boost the weapon's effectiveness. However, I think at this point it's fairly evident that it's better balanced for PC. The extra recoil does need to be mitigated, and on console, with thumbsticks, for many including myself, it just doesn't feel worth the effort. So with all of that in mind, I awarded the Shellshat a 6 out of 10. A fun gun with some powerful strengths, but too many unnecessary drawbacks due to it feeling like a weapon that's balanced for an entirely different game. Okay, next we come to the well gun, and it feels super weird this being in second place for me, as it's basically a clone of the EMP with some super slight alterations, and I mean super slight. I covered all of that in my review, so I won't cover that again here, but the well gun is solid. If we ignore its similarity to a weapon that already existed, it's a super easy to use SMG, massively lacking in recoil, and absolute laser beam with less bullet damage to balance it out, but not to the same degree as the Jono for me. Whereas I find the Johnson's lack of killing potential noticeable, the well gun is just a little bit behind, to the point that I can compensate for it against other players if I'm just quicker than them, and the ease of landing those rounds essentially makes up for it. And so because it performs well enough in most situations for me, I get to look at other aspects. And so a major focus for me is the aesthetic. I love how this thing looks. Running around with it just feels cool. The camo combo I found for it is just perfect for me, and I feel a connection with the gun. Plus I enjoy how it sounds. So despite it not being a groundbreaking addition of any kind, I do like the well gun, and I intend to continue to use it here and there. For me it gets a solid 7 out of 10, and second place on the list of new guns for my enjoyment. Well done, well gun. And so we come to my top rated final content update gun, my winner, and it's the M3 Infrared. Perhaps a surprising pick for some of you. I've seen a lot of people say this thing is bad or just straight up weird, mainly because it doesn't do what people expect it to do. It's a massive weapon that covers loads of your screen a lot of the time, and it's a recon gun that seemingly isn't good at range. So many people abandon using it very quickly, and I get that. I get it because the game doesn't really tell you much about the guns. So when some weapons have hidden features or unobvious strengths, most players simply don't find out. But the truth is that the M3 Infrared is an M1A1 for the recon class, which has a firing sound that isn't as noticeable, and it doesn't give the enemy any hit direction notifiers when you shoot them. So it can actually be an absolutely lethal run and gun stealth weapon, or of course another camping option if you so wish. That's up to you. I prefer getting into the action, but you do have to be able to cope with that infrared scope, which can't be altered. You can't change the magnification, and you can't use iron sights. So if that's not for you, then I totally understand, but for me, I'm giving the M3 Infrared an 8 out of 10. I hated it at first, now I really enjoy it, and so it takes my top spot for the final content update weapons for BF5. And so those are my rankings. Now be sure to give me yours in the comments below. If you enjoyed this, leaving a like is super cool of you. Subscribe if you're new or just haven't done so before if you want to help me hit my 50k target, and all the links to my social media including Patreon can be found in the description and my pinned comment, where if you do spot me on Patreon, you'll join the board of awesome you're seeing right here with all the other epic people who already do so. They're all absolute heroes, and I love them all deeply and of course often. So yep, links to all of that in the description and my pinned comment. And with that all said, I'm GetGoodGuy, and I'll see you next time. Laters. Our next statement is, my team sucks. And sometimes your team really does suck. Or sometimes you're just getting your butt cheeks mashed because you're playing badly, you're sat down near the bottom of the leaderboard,